gospel that we heard is part of what is called the eschatological discourse of Jesus. The word eschatology or eschatological comes from the word eschaton, E-S-C-H-A-T-O-N, eschaton. And the word eschaton means the last thing. In Christian eschatology, the four last things of men are the following. Number 1 is death. Number 2 is judgment. Number 3 is heaven. And number 4 is hell. The four last stages of the soul in life and the afterlife. Today's gospel reading is the fifth and final discourse in the Gospel of Matthew. And this gospel is concerned about the end of all things, the conclusion of life, the second and final coming of Christ to bring all things together. Our gospel is actually what you call a parousia parable. The meaning of the word parousia is final coming, and there are two of them in today's gospel reading. There are actually 7 parousia parables in the Gospel of Matthew, and we read 2 of them today. We have 2 short parables in today's gospel, and both consist of an exhortation for readiness to welcome the final coming of the Lord, and both call to be vigilant in watching for His return and to be ready to meet Him when He calls us to Himself. Let us say a few words about each of the 2 parables. In the first parable, the parable of the thief who comes into the night, it tells us that we should be on alert in watching for the coming of the Lord, as a householder would be to prevent his house being broken into and robbed. Like a thief, Jesus will come when we least expect Him. That is why the parable of the thief in the night brings home the necessity for constant watchfulness and being on guard at all times. While the thief does not announce his intention in advance, while the thief does not tell the time when he would strike, lack of vigilance would nonetheless invite disaster for those who are unprepared. The intruder may strike when he is least expected, and there is here an element of surprise. In the second parable, the storyline is similar. There is also an element of surprise in the parable of the wise and prudent servant. The master suddenly returns home unexpectedly and unannounced. He rewards one servant for his faithfulness to his master, and he punishes the other servant who behaved wickedly. My dear brothers and sisters, readiness is measured by people consistently carrying out their responsibilities. The lesson of the 2 parables is clear. Many of the Christians, ourselves included, who had expected the Lord to come soon, we now see no sign of Him, and we can begin to backslide in our living of the Christian life. We can be tempted to do the same thing, and we can say, let's have a good life, let us have a good time now, and we will convert later. But this is not a very wise policy, because in the long run, the really good life is a life that is based on truth and integrity, a life based on love and compassion, and not based on phoniness or selfishness or greed or hedonism and the immediate gratification of every pleasure. The conversion day may never come, or the chance to turn back to Him may never come. The wisest ones are those who consistently try to seek and serve the Lord at every moment of every day. They find happiness now, and Jesus will not be a stranger when He comes to call them to Himself. They are the ones who are both faithful and prudent. Amen.